Martin Banuelos stepped out and shut the door of his small two-bedroom house just as the plate slammed into the other side of the door and broke into 1,000 pieces. As the glass shards tinkled across the hard-packed floor inside, he could still hear Anna's muffled cursing from inside their small kitchen. Banuelos shook his head and looked over at his dusty old Chevy pickup. He never should have stayed out late partying with Juarez and his men. Banuelos slowly walked over to the beat-up truck and climbed in, the seat squeaking under his girth as he sat down. Grunting, he pulled the tiny .22 caliber pistol out of his tight waistband and laid it across the torn vinyl bench seat. Through the half-open passenger window, he could still hear Anna's grating voice ranting and raving. He shouted for her to shut up, full well knowing she couldn't hear him. The part-time hired gun jammed his key into the ignition and cranked the old engine over. The Chevy C10 roared to life. Banuelos smiled and patted the worn steering wheel. Nero had done a good job on the tune-up. He looked back over at his run-down house and could see Anna's animated form moving in the partially draped window. Now would probably be a good time to head over to Nero and pay him what he owed for the engine work. Banuelos shifted the truck into drive and headed out onto the road into town, thinking he would stop at Reyes's bar and grab a bite to eat since dinner was now out of the question. He'd driven about a half mile when he noticed someone lying face down on the side of the road. Shaking his head, he pulled up a few feet ahead of the person and got out of his truck. Banuelos figured it was probably one of the local drunks or junkies passed out. As he got closer, he found he was right. It was the druggy Cruz, laid out on the shoulder of the road. He knew if he left him there, something bad would more than likely happen to the spaced-out idiot. "Hey!" Banuelos nudged him with his booted foot. "Cruz, wake up!" The druggie didn't budge or appear to be breathing. Shit, he thought to himself. With some effort, he knelt down next to Cruz and felt his neck for a pulse. There was no pulse or signs of breathing. The Good Samaritan leaned back and noticed Cruz's skin was a sickly pale color. Some of his flesh had the appearance of having been peeled or torn off. "Dios míos," he said under his breath, and he made the sign of the cross. This was no good. With a chill running down his spine, he struggled to his feet. He would have to call Dr. Chapa immediately. He patted his pockets for his phone, but he realized he'd left it in the kitchen during his narrow escape from Anna. "Don't worry," Banuelos said to the addict's unmoving back. "I will get Dr. Chapa." Panicked, he turned back to his truck. From beside his feet, a hand suddenly snaked up and grabbed the heavy man by an ankle. "Dios!" Banuelos looked down to see Cruz grabbing onto his ankle. "Impossible," he thought. "Cruz is dead." Then Banuelos looked into the face of the thing that had a hold of him. Vacant eyes stared at him above the loosely hanging skin of its cheeks. Broken, jagged teeth snapped at him. It was El Diablo himself. Banuelos screamed as he tried to pull free from the demon's grip. Struggling, Banuelos lost his balance and fell hard to the ground. His screams soon disappeared into horrible, eating and tearing noises.